When you already know the algorithm you want to implement, why would you want to use test-driven development anyway? And how do you even test drive the implementation of a well-known formula? In my case, I needed a function that gets a percentage and returns the x and y coordinate on a circle, so that when you draw a pie slice to this coordinate, the size of the pie slice represents this percentage. I needed that because I was working on creating a simple kitchen timer app using React in a test-driven way. I did that because I teach React trainings and also TDD trainings, and I needed some new examples. So the timer represents the remaining time as a red pie slice, and it renders the whole application using a few React components for the timer, the slice, and the config panel. So an x and a y coordinate determined by a percentage point, and the x and the y coordinate should be on a circle. That will definitely be two calls to the built-in sinus and cosinus functions. So why should I implement a function like that? A simple function calling two built-in functions that could be a one-liner. Why should I write this function in a test-driven way? Well, the formula is simple. But when I started implementing it, I was sure that I would get something wrong on the first try. Is it sinus or minus sinus? And is sinus the x coordinate and cosinus the y coordinate, or is it vice versa? So even though I knew the formula, I wanted to write some tests for the edge cases to make sure that I did not mix up the signs or the order of the functions or the order of the coordinates. But which tests should I write to make sure that I did not mix anything up? How many tests do I need to drive the implementation of this function? And which tests do I need to catch regressions later? In this case, I decided to write tests for only 3 points on the circle. As I've said, I already knew the formula. I just wanted to make sure that I don't mix anything up, that I do not accidentally break anything. And 3 points was sufficient for that. Also, I would hope that nobody changes the implementation to something completely incompatible later, like not even using sinus and cosinus at all. So those 3 tests should also be sufficient to catch regressions later and to make sure nobody accidentally breaks the function. The first test I wrote was for the topmost point on the circle, the point with the coordinates 0 and -1. And I only added this point to define the API for now, but it will also stay there and stay green, so it will also help me later to verify that I did not break anything from the tests before. I used the next test to pin down the formula for the y coordinate. So I already knew that it would be either sinus or cosinus with a sign or not. And by looking at the fake implementation of segment 2, the fake implementation that I did before, I knew that it had to be minus cosinus. And then I added a third test for the x coordinate, and by now I already knew that it would be either minus sinus or sinus, because the cosinus was already taken by the y coordinate. But would it be minus sinus or sinus? Well, by writing the test case, I then instantly knew that it had to be minus sinus. And this test also reinforces my use of cosinus for the other coordinate, because cosinus produces the correct result at this point, which is 0. So even though I almost knew the implementation before even starting, writing tests helped me. It helped me to break down the implementation into smaller steps, and it helped me to make sure that I did not break anything at any of those 3 steps. And also from now on, I can show everyone who asks automatically that this function produces the correct result. And so those 3 tests were all I needed to drive the implementation, to pin down the y coordinate and the x coordinate. And they are also enough to show that the code works correctly, at least when the future reader knows some trigonometry. And later I added a radius to this function, so I added some more tests. So how do you test drive an algorithm where you already know the algorithm? Do you do that? And if so, how? Please tell me in the comments and we can have a discussion. And also, if you have any questions, please write a comment and I will try to answer them. Follow me on Twitter, I am dTensor there, and there I will announce the next video of this series, which will be about switching from the TDD routine to implementing a spike. And also check out our current training offers at devteams.at/services/training.